Welcome to the Stay Grounded podcast, brought to you by JavaPresse Coffee Company. My name is Raj Jana, and I'm the Chief Brewing Officer here at JavaPresse, where we help people make daily happiness a priority using the coffee we love. I interview people from all walks of life to discuss happiness, success, fulfillment, and ways to infuse it all into daily life. I want to dissect different thought processes and turn them into powerful insights that empower you to stay grounded and make daily happiness and fulfillment a reality. So thanks for joining me today. Now, let's get to grinding. Hello. Welcome to episode 23 of the Stay Grounded podcast. I'm your host, Raj, and super excited today to be introducing a friend of mine, Mr. Matt Aitchison. So Matt, God, he's just got such a cool story. Matt has flipped over 150 houses in the last 6 years as a creator of sixfigureflipper.com, where he helps other people learn how to do the same for a fraction of the price that other people are charging for this type of information, which I think is awesome. So he's just a guy that likes to give back, and this episode is no different. He drops so many gems, and what I love about Matt, and I think this is a common theme that I love about just our guests in general, nobody had a silver spoon in their mouth. Everybody came through tough times and created a life of abundance for themselves. They went through the hardships and they came from nothing a lot of times. And Matt, really, his childhood he had a troubled childhood. He was getting in fights. He was hanging around the wrong people. And then in college, he got into a fight and got arrested. And I think this experience is what made him realize that, hey, if I want to change, I have to change. If I want a different life, I have to create a different life for myself. And then he took complete ownership and he made it happen. And now Matt, just seemingly like if you look at where he was to where he is now, it's night and day. He has a beautiful family. He's living the life that he loves. He's in great shape. He seemingly has it all. And his goal is now to be a millionaire in every part of life, which I think is inspiring. And he's got such a data-driven and process-driven approach to doing that. And that's exactly what we dove into on this episode. We went through everything and brought out the gems of how you and how anybody can just make a change in their lives as long as they want that. And God, I'm just so pumped for Matt to share his brilliance on this episode. I found so many helpful tidbits that I started applying immediately to my life, and I hope you guys find the same. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. But before we get started, please give us some feedback, leave us a review, subscribe to the show, get involved. Let me know what you like and don't like. You know what? Send me an email. chiefbrewer@javapresse.com. JavaPresse has an E at the end, if you guys already didn't know that. Yeah, let me know what you like. I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, what you want more of, what you don't want, so that we can create a show that's really built around everybody in the community. My goal is to make everybody achieve their dreams and their goals through the daily rituals and mindsets needed to make that a reality. So the more you talk to me, the more I know. And the more I know, the more I can help. So anyways, let's get started. So without further ado, here's Mr. Matt Aitchison. Hello. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Stay Grounded podcast. I'm your host, Raj, and super excited to have you here, Matt. How are you, man?
Dude, it's a pleasure to be here, man. I'm doing fantastic. How about you, brother?
Killing it, man. I'm feeling good this morning. It's bright and sunny in Houston, and yeah, man, I'm super excited to have this conversation with you, though. You're definitely someone that I've followed for a while, so exciting to start the conversation and keep it going.
Well, we're going to have some fun. So grateful to be here and always love connecting with people, high energy, high positivity, doing great things, adding value. And I think we're going to do a little bit of that today.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, let's dive into it. So obviously I already gave a short intro on you before this episode, but I'd love for you to just tell me about your story in your own words, kind of where you came from to where you are now, and really focusing on that, like the transformation, because I think that's something that I found just fascinating about you. and just everything you're about, man.
Yeah. My story is my story, right? It's nothing amazing. It is, it's unique to my own experience. And I think we all have our own unique journeys and stories that, something that's fascinating to me about every individual is, we all have this collection of experiences and relationships and all kinds of things that lead us to where we're currently at today. And so I'm very grateful for where I am today, and kind of rewinding back to where I initially kind of started with. It really started with two amazing parents. I'll start there. Both my parents divorced when I was young. I got to give the credit to where credit is due. Yeah. Two amazing parents that were corporate climbers. So they worked in corporate America, basically their entire careers. And they divorced when I was very young, but also were cordial, which, isn't always the case for a lot of people. But I was bouncing back and forth between both my parents, and I was big into sports. I mean, I was always in sports, doing, you name it, water polo, tennis, football, baseball, basketball. But when I got to high school, basketball kind of became my love, my one sport focus. And I'd always been very competitive, only child. So for me, now looking back, I can kind of uncover some of these things and peel back the layers to the onion and go, well, why was I that way? Right. Because I've been kind of on that journey of exploring who I am and internally kind of breaking some things down. But always very competitive, always wanting to fit in, always wanting to be the best, to gain that acceptance, whether it was from friends, from coaches, from parents, whatever it may be. And when I started getting into playing basketball, in middle school and high school, I had a lot of great friends. I was kind of the token white guy hanging out with all my brothers. And we got into some shit. We would do things and, engage with people or experiences or crutches or you name it, that ultimately, weren't serving me at the highest level. Right. And my senior year of high school, first week, I ended up getting in a physical altercation with a kid from another school and actually got expelled from high school. And I had to go through kind of this whole wash list of items in order for this to be expunged off my record. I was a 4.0 student, so I could at least have the chance, because my parents had always kind of drilled into me, like, do good in school and go to college and then get a job and then, right? All that kind of stuff. And so that was kind of my path subconsciously that I'd been laying out in my physical world for quite some time. And when that whole turbulent time had happened, my world was, thrown upside down. And that was the real, I'd been getting into some stuff and some trouble, but nothing that really held high consequences that I had to face. Right. And I remember, that kind of being the first dose of ultimate reality of like, dude, your actions in life have heavy consequences, good or bad. Right. And I was on the wrong side of it at that time. But I ended up having to go through this checklist of, you got to go through anger management. You got to do thousands of hours of community service. I went to a continuation high school where all the troubled teens go and, the gang members. And it was, completely different shakeup of what I was used to. But it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. And I got through that. I ended up graduating high school, got my diploma, and all the colleges had basically kind of gotten wind of what happened except for UC Santa Barbara, which was the one school that accepted me. And I ended up going down to UC Santa Barbara, getting my education there. But my first year kind of fell back into some same patterns of poor environment, poor peer group, extracurricular activities. You can fill in the blanks there. And who would have thought lightning strikes twice? I got arrested for the exact same thing that I got expelled for in high school, which is a physical altercation when I was intoxicated. And I remember sitting in jail, and I came out of my blackout basically. And I looked to my left, and there's like this big, gnarly, bald-headed biker dude with tats everywhere. I looked to my right. There's like this, Hispanic gang member with tattoos all over his face. In the corner, there's like a tweaker who's throwing up all over himself. And immediately I remember like as clear as day, I sobered up so quick and I was like, this is now my reality of who my new peer group is, what my new tribe looks like, what my new environment looks like. And I was scared shitless. I mean, that was just something that I did not want to become my reality, because I'd always had these big goals and big dreams and big aspirations, and yet my audio of what I was telling myself and what I was telling other people was definitely not being matched with my audio, my video, my actions, and how I was playing out my life. And so I remember having a conversation with my dad, and he just said, your past doesn't have to equal your future. And I know that this isn't who you really are unless it is. And the only way we're going to be able to know that, the only way other people are going to be able to know that, is how you respond to this situation right here. And that's going to tell a lot about your character. It's going to tell a lot about what your future looks like. And so I remember getting out of jail, and the first 24 hours, the only thing I did, I think I applied at like 40 different jobs. And I ended up getting hired at this little investment firm, starting out as a cold caller, pounding the phones, 10 hours a day, going to school full time, working just about anywhere from 30 to 40 hours a week, depending on the week. Yeah. And I worked my way up to kind of being the right hand for the owner of the company, small business entrepreneur. And that was kind of my first dose of entrepreneurship, and seeing the lifestyle, the freedom, being your own boss, helping other people accomplish their goals. And that was something that I wanted for myself. And so when I graduated from UC Santa Barbara, I decided to move back home and figure out what the heck it was that I wanted to do. And my mom had been taking me to real estate investing seminars when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15. And she'd exposed me to kind of this real estate entrepreneurship path.
Yeah.
And when I got back, I had this piece of paper that I wasn't going to use. I had spent all kinds of money on it and decided that I wanted to go down a completely different path. And I didn't want to go get a job. I didn't want to work for somebody else. So I decided to get my real estate license, and started building up a real estate team. 5 years later, we were the top ranked real estate team, top 1,000 real estate teams in the country, ranked by Wall Street Journal. We did that 2 years back to back. And at the same time, while I was building my real estate team, I started buying houses and flipping houses and holding them as rental properties. And so over the last about 6 years, I've flipped over 150 houses. I have held a good amount of my rentals in my portfolio for passive income. And now I spend a lot of my time educating other people on real estate investing, but ultimately just lifestyle design, right? And how whatever path you choose, there's a way to architect what you want. There's just also a framework and a system and, a strategy behind how you need to be intentional of going about and getting that. And that's what I do, man. I get to hang out and talk with awesome people like you, connect with other amazing people that are doing awesome things in their life, study them, extract, their models, their information, their strategies, apply what works, to my life and what aligns with my life, and also share as much of that as I possibly can with other people.
I love it, man. I love it. Your story is such a quintessential entrepreneur story. You've had the peaks and the valleys. I want to focus on the valleys, though.
There's plenty of them, man. You don't got enough time for that.
Well, let's pick one that you mentioned. When you realized in college that you had to make some serious changes.
Yep.
I imagine getting that party started was difficult. So what was that first sprint like when you made a decision to change your life? Like, how did you kind of fight that uphill battle? Because once you kind of set the habit, it's smooth sailing. You start seeing the results, you start seeing what's happening, but getting started is always the hardest part. So how did you get yourself out of this hole into, at least through habits, routines? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, exploring uncharted waters is always scary for anybody, right? I think of like Christopher Columbus when he got on that ship and decided, I'm going to go find the next world out there.
Yeah.
That took a lot of courage, right? It took a lot of courage. It took a lot of faith, a lot of belief in himself and the people that he was around. And so for me, I was scared, man. I mean, to be honest, anytime you decide to embark on something new, whether it's, to try and get your life back on track in an extreme capacity, or maybe it's just to lose 5 pounds and you're struggling with weight or, something in that capacity, it takes courage, right? And so for me, I had kind of done this life audit where I knew there were some things that I needed to change. And I had obviously a lot of reflection time. And I remember going the two immediate places that I can control right now that could make a significant difference in putting myself in a position to grow in the right way and to get on the path that I wanted to be on was to, one, edit my peer group and who I surround myself with, and edit my environment and where I, hang out and what I do and, what I surround myself with. And I have always had a very all in or all out kind of personality. And so for me, I made some pretty significant changes to my peer group rapidly. I also made some pretty significant changes to my environment and the, things that I was engaging with. One was alcohol and drugs, and two was who I was spending my time with. And an easy way for people to do this is literally, I drew a line down the center of a piece of paper, and I put together on the left side, it was the pluses and the multiplication sign, and on the right side, it was the negative and the division sign. And I listed down basically the majority of the people I was spending most of my time with, on whether they were somebody who added value to my life, inspired me, were positive influences, were doing great things, that had the results that I wanted in my life. And then I made a list of all the people that were negative or were maybe, distracting me or doing things that weren't necessarily moving me in the direction that I wanted to move. And basically, I would say 90% of the people I put on that piece of paper were on the wrong side of the paper.
Right.
And so that was a kind of a quick thing of going, I need to, edit my peer group. I need to figure out what my tribe looks like. And so for me, it just started with shrinking it. Didn't mean I was, exchanging it or replacing it. It just meant really shrinking it and focusing on myself. And that, came down to a lot of books, a lot of reading, a lot of seminars, a lot of kind of meetup groups of meeting like-minded people that allowed me to, get in the space and the conversation. I've always believed that we grow into the conversations around us. So if you want to be a millionaire, go hang out with 9 other millionaires. And most likely you're going to adopt the mentality, the disciplines, the habits, the network, the research, all the information that will empower you to be on that path as well. Same thing. You hang around 9 other negative people who are always talking about how the world sucks and poor me and blah, 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 right? Then you're going to adopt that mentality too. So I had to change the conversations I was in, the environment that I was hanging around, and the people that I was spending time with. And then from there, it became, mentorship. What people do I want to allow to speak into my life? Do I want to surround myself with? And my very first mentor really was that guy who hired me in his business. And he shortened my learning curve in a lot of areas. He exposed me to things that I didn't know, helped me avoid mistakes that I probably would have made otherwise, accelerated some of the results and the growth that I was looking for. And that was the journey that I was on from the day I basically had, gotten out of jail to the day that I had graduated from college, was just pouring into myself and growing and learning about who I was as a man at, 19 to let's say 21 years old. Was a lot of exploration, and because there was one part of that was I was just really ashamed of who I was. Like I knew that the past that I had was not who I really was, and yet I had succumbed to the pressures and the influences and the things that were around me. And so from there, I really had this shame and guilt around it. And I read a book by Brene Brown called The Gift of Imperfections. And for a lot of men, especially the people I surrounded myself with, you start talking about your feelings and this, inner game and your spirituality. And they're like, what the hell is this dude talking about? Like, you wimp in a nice way, right? Of putting it. And I read that book, and it gave me permission to actually just like tap into who am I, explore what that is, not be shameful or feel guilty or whatever it is. And to know that I have the opportunity as a human being to explore myself in a way that I'd never done that before. And that was really the book that kind of led me down this path of really digging into what that was and trying to identify who I wanted to become and what kind of habits and what kind of disciplines and mentors and all that kind of stuff I needed to really push into. And I think we all probably can relate to that in some capacity of, having shame or guilt or whatever it may be. But after reading that book, it gave me permission to just be my organic self, like not to try and please everybody, not to try and do all the things I think I need to do or what I need to say or to fall in line or conform, but to really like be me, the organic Matt. And as I started doing that, I started realizing that all of the relationships, the conversations, the experiences, the opportunities, everything was just a pure reflection of Matt, the organic Matt. And that was something that really, looking back, was one of the biggest doors that were opened for me and gifts that were given to me, and that I actually was, fortunate enough to walk through that courageously, because it would have been easier to just stay in that comfort zone. And that has led me down many, many different paths that have created a lot of value in my life.
Absolutely, man. And first of all, I just want to commend you on that. I think it's going all in or nothing isn't an easy decision. But what I love about what you said, I want to key in on something you said. You said you didn't necessarily exchange the negatives for the positives. You just shrunk it. So instead of you're getting rid of 90% of your peers, your influences, your everything. You didn't try and add 90%. You just focused in on the 10. And when you kind of drive in with that level of focus, you start to really pay attention to the things that matter, which is exactly what you did. So what are the things that matter to you today? Like, how do you foster this sense of purpose and exploration, and what does your daily ritual look like to keep yourself motivated and moving on that path, instead of something that may stray back? How do you just keep the party going?
I think it comes back to being number one piece that I think a lot of people lack in their life, whether it's in their business goals, whether it's in their core values, it's clarity. Like, what do you stand for? What is important to you? If I were to put a gun to your head and say that you can only do, certain things and spend time with certain people and serve in a certain way while you're left on this planet, what would you eliminate and go, that's really just not important to me. Yeah. And that's just a distraction. And what would you put your time and your energy into? And so for me, it was just condensing things so I could get clarity in what really was important. And I was 19, 20 at the time. So, I'm 29 now. That was about 10 years ago. And a lot has shifted. Obviously, I have, 2 young girls, 3.5 and 8 months. I'm married. I have my businesses, things like that. Whereas before it was just like, hey, I need to survive and get back on the right track here before I, end up in a place for a very long time that I don't want to be. Yeah. And so, that was a big piece of just getting clarity and like, who am I? What do I stand for? Right? And what will I stand for? So identifying what my core values were was a big piece of it. That was kind of like my North Star that guided me. So, if there was an experience or a situation or conversation or something that wasn't aligned with my core values, I was going to have to be the one to have the discipline to stand up and either remove myself or to say something or do something that made me stay in alignment with my values and not get sucked back in. So it really became a discipline game, but because I was clear on what it was that I stood for and, the goals that I was going after and the things I knew I needed to do, it made it a lot easier for me to just be ruthless in going yes or no, right? I move forward or I don't move forward. And so that whole piece of it, getting clarity and that helped me identify what my next steps were. Because, it's easy to get pulled and sucked into all the different, directions of life. And so that was a big part of it. And then obviously having mentors was hands down probably one of the biggest accelerators and, positive influences in my life. I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by some amazing, amazing, amazing people. Yeah. And I sought those people out, right? And I stepped into those opportunities and connected with those people and fostered and nurtured and, strengthened those relationships. And those people have, mentored me in all different areas of life. And one piece of that is obviously, I've picked and pulled from all of their different routines and their habits and their disciplines where I'm like, I love that. I want to give that a try. And there's a book called Small Bets. And I'm a big believer of this in life is, I like, trying to figure out life hacks and figure out what is the best thing for me that helps me, perform at my optimum peak state. And the routine kind of equation and formula was something and is still something that I'm always playing around with. Right. And, I've actually have been doing this obsessively for the last, 5 or so years. And then over time I had people, I was literally like writing in Excel what my routine was. And I tried this, for 2 weeks, which I call a small bet, right? So before you decide to push all your chips in the center of the table, why don't you just try some of these things and test some of these things?
I love that. Yeah.
And that's what I call the small bets in life. And so I've been making many small bets in my routines and my relationships and all kinds of areas of life to figure out what is, the optimum performance or result that I can get by figuring out what the, ideal formula is for this. And so I don't know if you can see this, but this is basically my daily routine, and it's got my morning routine, kind of my daily habits, my evening routine. And I pull things in, I pull things out, but most importantly, I would say that the morning routine is key, and equally as important is the evening routine. And when I'm on point with both of those routines, I'm crushing my days, I'm winning my weeks, I'm winning my months, I'm having great years. When I'm not, I know I'm not. I'm off track, right? But that's also a part of being a human being is, if all we were was on track for our entire life, it'd be pretty damn boring, and we wouldn't learn a whole lot about ourselves. So This is just really, the routine is my awareness tool, my tracking tool to tell me when I'm on track, when I'm off track, when do I need to course correct, when do I need to double down. And it allows me to actually measure the things that I'm managing in my life that are most important to me to figure out how I show up the best. And then from there, I can obviously read between the lines and figure out what I need to keep doing and what I need to maybe stop.
Man, I have 2 questions. I don't know which one I want to ask first. I guess one question, you can maybe answer both. One is, how did you come up with your core values? Because I think that's something that I'm clear on what my goals are and where I want to be. And I'm clear on who I want in my life. But as far as defining them as distinct core values, that's a really interesting concept to me. And then 2, what is your daily non-negotiable on that routine list? What is something that you've tested through the small bets that just works for you consistently throughout and throughout?
Yeah. So for me, the hands down non-negotiable, 2 really non-negotiables for me are affirmations and workout. For me to physically move my body, it's a night and day difference when I am, I'm getting some kind of exercise and physical activity.
Man, yeah.
The second piece is just the affirmations, which, a lot of people think affirmations are so woo-woo, right? And like, that's just, whatever. So I reframe that for those people that feel that way and just say, this is just your daily reminder to yourself.
Yeah.
So your daily reminder could be, I tell myself every day, I'm a great real estate investor. And through my real estate investments, I can create freedom for my family and for my future family, right? Or I am a great husband, father, and leader. There's all these different things that these are just my reminders that I want to tell myself. And when I am having those conversations, because we have conversations in our brain every second, every day, multiple times, 60,000 thoughts a day. And a lot of them you can't control. Well, I want to make sure the ones I can control, I'm putting positive,
hell yeah, man. I love it.
Injections into my brain. So that's, the 2 things I would say about my routine. The third I would add to that is planning in the evening for the next day. Because so many people in the life that we live in today, it's very easy to just be reactive wherever you go, whatever you do. And when I am proactive, I have found that I'm way more productive. I'm way more intentional. I'm way more clear and purposeful on what I'm supposed to be getting out and doing. I cover more ground in less time. And I'm just more efficient and fulfilled when I'm actually planning those things out. And when I don't, I'm running around like I got my head cut off doing a ton of different things and going in a million different directions. And so for me, that evening piece is very, not only very critical, but it's also very relieving to just know what I'm going to be doing the next day and to step into that.
Sleep better.
Yeah. Yep. So those are 2 pieces for me that are very big. Going back to your question in regards to how do you determine your core values, that is a really good question. And I just think of kind of there's an acronym that one of my mentors taught me. It's called the MVVBP. And it's, what is your mission? What is your vision? What are your values? What are your beliefs? And what are your perspectives? And so from there, by answering those questions, right? It's like, what's your mission? Why do you exist while you're here on this planet? And, these are some pretty loaded questions. So it's not like you're going to sit down in 30-minute exercise and be like, all right, I got my whole, MVVP figured out. I got my core values dialed in. These are things that have morphed and taken me time to figure out over time. One, by just becoming wiser with age and experience. Two, by having, life altering, changes that just change who you are. So for me, it's been one of those things where this mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives has evolved over time. But by having the conversation in the first place and starting it, most people have never had this conversation with themselves or with other people. And so I have found that through some of my mentors, some of the most successful, and not just financially successful people, but some of the most fulfilled and happy and, generous people are the people who are having these conversations on a very consistent basis over and over and over again, and evolving what that looks like to expand that, to make that bigger, and to create more opportunity for the people around them too, to have these kind of conversations and learn and grow. So I've just been in a lot of what is your purpose? What is your passion? What is your mission? What is your vision type of conversations, which have allowed me to explore what they actually are. Because, when I first started out, I was like scratching my head. I was like, I want to be rich. I want to travel, right? Yeah. All of the same shit that most people say. But when you really peel back the layers to the onion, it's like, nah, like, what do you really want to do? Why do you really want to do that? Who do you really want to impact? Is there a cause? Is there a person? Is there a group of people? Is there a specific category? Whatever it may be, these are things that take some time. But I have found that by getting intimate with these conversations, I get more intimate with myself, and therefore I get more intimate with the vehicle or the experience that will allow me to play these things out and bring them into like a physical reality in my world.
I've always believed that. Thanks for that, by the way. That was super clarifying. I've always believed that having clarity around your mission, vision, values, beliefs, perspectives, and that having that conversation almost allows you to live with a mindset of abundance. And when you're only focusing on those aspects of your life and filtering through that lens, you almost kind of get to have your cake and eat it too, because you're 100% focusing on just the positivity, the things that are bringing you joy, and you're cutting out everything else, and you're filtering it through your lens of success or what that means to you. And when you're just filtering it through your lens, you're always playing in your favor. And how has that shown up for you just in general? Like, how does that show up for you in different parts of your life? One thing I read on your website, which I loved, was that you want to show up as a millionaire in every part of your life, not just one part of your life. So how do your mission, vision, and values kind of permeate all the parts of your life? And when things have to be compromised, how do you do that? How do you balance everything?
Yeah. Well, I don't think you're ever in balance, right? It's just a very consistent state of counterbalance. It's like when you're standing up on one foot, you're never 100% stationary. You're always leaning one little bit to the left, and then you counterbalance, and then back to the right, right? So it's like that's honestly how I look at life. And for me, it is one of those things where, I talk about kind of what you had stated, being a whole life millionaire. And this whole word of millionaire it holds different meanings to different people. Yeah. Some people, their money mindset is millionaires and money and wanting money and the desire for money. That's evil. That's bad. It's this, it's that, which that's just bad programming, right? And there's money just makes you more of who you are. If you're an amazing human being, I know a lot of rich people that are amazing people and do amazing things with their money. And I'm glad that they have more money than some of the people that don't have money, because they do great stuff with it. Yeah. Right. And then there are the people that are, filthy rich, and they're greedy, and they are unethical, and they do things. I know a lot of poor people that are that way too, so it's a word to me that means thinking in a rich and fulfilling way in the mindset. And so living like a millionaire, calling it the whole life millionaire in all areas of your life, is I know a lot of people who are financially extremely abundant, like I just said, but they're bankrupt in their relationships with their wife or their kids. They're bankrupt in their health. They're bankrupt in giving back to people and, making contributions to the world. They're bankrupt in, their careers, right? So just because they have money doesn't mean that they're wealthy. Wealthy is a different definition. And so for me, it was, how do I become financially abundant? And that some people that might be, hey, you have $100 million in the bank. Other people might say, I got $7,000 in passive income coming in every month, and my living expenses are paid for, and I can do what I want when I want with who I want. Right. Yep. So for me, it's being financially free. It's being a great husband. It's being a great father who's not just, giving quality time, but also a quantity of time. Love is, in my opinion, spelled Time. And when you tell yourself that you can only be there for, I gave her a good hour tonight. Bullshit. Like that's not serving you or your family at the highest level. Secondarily, the third is, how can I give back to other causes bigger than myself? To give to people that are less fortunate than me, to maybe be a vehicle for them taking a step in their life that they've always wanted to take and they don't have the confidence to do it, but maybe I can lend my belief in them that day that inspires them to do something like that because somebody did it for me too, right? So living abundantly in all areas of your life, being a millionaire in all areas of your life, that's my goal. That's what I aspire to do. And hell yeah, it takes a lot of balance. And honestly, when I show people my planner and they see how crazy that is, people are like, dude, that is way too intense. You're crazy. And when they tell me that, I'm like, yep. All right. That's why I'm doing this. Because when 99% of people tell you they wouldn't do this or won't do this, that's when I know I need to do this. And when I've studied other people who do this, these are the people that are ultimately living as high as they possibly can, whatever that capacity may be for them. But at the same time, they are living very balanced. It's not the scales aren't, and when the scale does tip too heavy in one direction or another, because life will show up, life will slap you in the face every once in a while. You have to be able to go, I have the ability to get through this. I have the ability to course correct. And by tracking these things, it just allows my awareness to be super heightened. So I know when something's off. I know when I need to course correct. I know when I need to tilt the scales backwards. And one of the things that I track is, I call it my legendary life rating. So I have my 8 gardens that I track my life in. And I rate myself at the beginning of every week and I rate myself at the end of every week. So there's times, where, I'll go, how did I show up as a father this week? Oh, well, I took work off this day and I took Ella to the park and we went on a breakfast date. I'm crushing it. I showed up as a 9.5. And maybe there's other weeks where I'm like, hey, I was traveling for 2 weeks and I was out here and out there. And so I'm going to give myself a 6. So I need to make up some stuff here for the next, right? So it just keeps my ability to, gauge where I'm at in those categories that I've identified for myself as being the most important and where I want to show up at the best.
Dude, I love how data-driven you are. I think that's so awesome. You're like down to the T, which is inspiring, man. You're inspiring me to add layers of tracking and accountability into my life.
Well, I'll say this, this is an eclectic, really grouping of things that I've pulled from all my different mentors, right? So I would say that this doesn't work for everybody and some of it will work for everybody. And there's other things that you may just want to take one piece of it, right? And so that's where I go back to the small bets, right? Like you gotta be intentional enough to actually test some of these things to figure out what actually works, right? So many people try one thing and they give up because it didn't get them the results they want. And that could be in any aspect of life, not just goal setting. That could be in a relationship. It could be in a new career that you're trying. It could be anything. So you have to do a lot of small bets and you have to push through the challenges to actually, one, know what you're made of and what you're capable of. Because I can ask this question, and I ask this question to people all the time, is what you're doing right now today in this exact moment was once a stretch for you mentally and physically. Right. But you figured out a way to normalize it. It's your new, it's just what you do now. Right. So I'm always constantly trying to explore, how can I 2.0 myself? How can I 2.0 my mindset? How can I 2.0 my routine, my disciplines, my habits, my relationships, right? And so I want to figure out what to me seems scary or what seems big in the moment can eventually become my new normal. And that's where the data helps us track and figure out, because you cannot, and I truly believe this, is you cannot at the highest level know what's working for you and what's not working for you if you don't have any data to go off of. And I am like, my personality profile is not data driven. I do not like this shit, but I've learned to adopt it because I know it serves me at the highest level, and I'm more committed to hitting my goals and doing the most that I can do for myself and my family and for the people that I care about and the causes that I support than me being comfortable and saying, that's too much to do.
Oh man, what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. And what I love about, you said something, first of all, I think that everybody has the capacity in themselves to do this. At least because you say yourself, love is spelled Time. I mean, that is, if you love yourself, if you love the people around you, if you love what you're working on, if you love anything, you'll make the time to do it. And this is a small investment that we can all make in our lives to really keep accountable to the things that matter most to us. I want to dive into something that you mentioned earlier in the conversation. You used the word grateful a lot. I'm a big, gratitude's a huge part of my life, and something I try to practice as much as I can. How does gratitude play a role in your routine? How does it fit in with this grand scheme that you practice? And what are some ways that you cultivate it each day?
Yeah. So I'll just go back to my journal. Every day I write down the things I'm grateful for, the experiences, the people. I don't have the greatest memory. So for me, I write down a lot of stuff. I track a lot of things. I'm writing in, my Evernote has thousands and thousands of notes, and I track my stuff monthly. So I can go back to these things, but gratitude hands down is one of the leading pillars of my life, and when I continue to pour energy and appreciation into the things that ultimately I'm grateful for, it seems to continue to reciprocate. You hear that, just the cliched law of attraction, right? And people have heard it over and over and over again. And the shit's true. I don't know what to tell you guys. It's true. And so the more I find that I practice it and make it a habit and a discipline in my life, the more, one, I'm aware, there's your reticular activating system, which most people call your RAS, the piece in your brain where, the easiest way of explaining it is when you bought a new car and you drove that car off the lot, all of a sudden everybody around the freeway, you're like, oh my gosh, my car's everywhere. And oh shoot, my car's up on that billboard. And oh my, I didn't even know my neighbor had the same car. And, right? It's like, but the thing is that was always there. That was always there, but you just put more attention in your brain, in your reticular activating system now turned on to the fact that that's your car and it's everywhere, right? You're looking for it. So for me, it's how do I turn my reticular activating system on to the things, the people, the experiences, the conversations, the relationships that I'm super grateful for and want more of. And through gratitude, it allows me to continue to enhance my RAS in those areas, in those things, so that in turn, the desire, right? The intention is to get more of them, to appreciate more of those things, to experience more of those things. And gratitude, hands down, is a daily habit for me.
Oh my gosh, man. I love that. I love you. You're awesome. You're awesome.
I love you too, man.
You're awesome. Yeah. Gratitude reciprocates. I've always found that the more things I'm grateful for and the more I express gratitude for those things, the more comes into my life that I'm allowed to be even more grateful for. So it's like this hamster wheel of just things continuing to feed each other. And you can be on one of two hamster wheels, one that where you're actively practicing appreciation and gratitude, and then one where you're actively waiting. You're in reactive versus proactive. And I think that's what I love so much about you, man. You're so proactive with what you're doing and how you're doing it. Matt, tell me more about sort of six-figure flipper, man. Tell me more about that. I'm sure there's tons of people in our audience that are interested in real estate. Tell me more about how they can get involved with you and learn more about what you're doing.
Yeah, well, brother, I appreciate it. This has been fun. And real quick before I touch on that, you talked about really two things, and one is the law of attraction, but I also believe that the law of attraction isn't fully fulfilled without the law of action. So people think that they can just think about these things and that it's going to happen, right? And that's not, in my opinion, the case. You need to think about these things. You need to visualize these things. You need to, attract these things into your life. But most importantly, you need to take massive action in your life.
Yep.
And that's probably one of the biggest things that, when people ask me, how have you done what you've done? I'm just like, well, I'm just kind of stupid and I just keep moving forward all the time. Like I just keep failing forward. And so for me, it's one of those things where you gotta have that law of attraction as a pillar in your life, but you also got to be willing to act and to, when the fear shows up, push into it instead of run away from it. So, and that's ultimately what led me into real estate investing was when I was that broke, college student with a piece of paper and that I wasn't gonna, put into action, and I wanted to make a shift and figure out what I wanted to do. I wanted to be really my own boss. I wanted the freedom and flexibility of being in control of my own fate, my own future. I wanted unlimited earning potential. I kind of created this hit list of things that I wanted in my career. And when I started going through and researching all these things that I wanted, the last piece of it was I didn't want to just go and chase an income stream of, making a paycheck. I wanted to actually do something in a space that allowed me to generate wealth at the same time.
Yeah.
And real estate was the one that checked off all of those boxes. And I kind of had that bug planted, from those previous conferences I attended with my mom.
Right.
And so for me, it was real estate investing. And it's been the greatest thing that has, besides my wife and my 2 kids, if you're listening, baby, I love you. One of the greatest things that has ever come into my life, because it has allowed me more freedom. It has allowed me more flexibility. It's allowed me to have way more fun. It's allowed me to work with some amazing people, have unimaginable experiences that I never had dreamt of. And at the same time, I've been able to create wealth and passive income from it. And so that was one of the things where I started getting flown around and speaking at different, events and seminars and real estate offices all around the country and teaching other people how to do this. And I was like, I just need to create a course and a community and an education platform, because I saw a lot of these. And I hate using the word guru, but it's one of those things where a lot of the leaders in the space were charging 10, 20, 30, 50, even $100,000 for some of this stuff. And people were mortgaging their houses and doing all kinds of crazy stuff just to get the information. They didn't even know if they were going to be good at it or like it. So I created a very, 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 very competitive course and community and product to rival a lot of these people, but to do it for less than $500. Awesome. So for me, that was one of those things where I have been grateful to connect with so many people and give them a bridge to real estate investing, to avoid the mistakes that I made when I was first starting out, to hopefully accelerate their, success in getting that first deal under their belt and, getting going in the space and getting the education they needed. And that's where the 6-figure flipper spawns. So for anybody that wants to, learn more about that, they can go to sixfigureflipper.com, or they can check out my website, mattaitchison.com. And there's all kinds of freebies and tools and webinars and trainings and stuff like that. And whether they download anything or sign up for anything, I just love connecting with people who have some kind of desire or passion to maybe learn about it, because I know what kind of freedom it can unlock when it's done correctly. And so for anybody that's listening that has maybe that desire, wants to know more, they can always tweet me at official Matty A, or find me on Instagram or Facebook, official Matty A as well. And love connecting with anybody.
Dude, you're such a rock star. I love it, man. I love it. We'll be, for everybody listening, we'll be making all of these resources available on the site right under Matt's podcast episode when it goes live. So keep an eye out for that. Matt, we ask one question to all of our guests who are on the show, and in the midst of everything you've accomplished and where you are right now from where you've came from, how do you stay grounded on a daily basis?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say humility is probably one of the greatest, in my opinion, characteristics that any leader can embody. And so for me, it's the constant reminder of, no matter how big you think you are, there's always somebody bigger, better, faster, stronger than you are, right? So to just constantly remember that, we are, and I'll just speak in my own terms, that I am only one human being on this planet that makes it what it is. But by showing up the way I know I can control, that gives me the fire to and the passion to show up and grab life big every single day to the best of my abilities, and to just remain humble. Because I don't know about you, but I know personally speaking, for me, some of the greatest leaders and mentors and individuals who have made a significant impact on my life have been some of the most humble people in moments or in spaces that they didn't need to be. Yep. And so that's something that I think I just always remind myself of and want to embody and pass on to other people. That's part of my vision, and my mission is to share that characteristic, because I believe that it will do more good and serve more people than the alternative.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, it shines through you. I can see it, the humility and just gratitude for everything you're doing and everything you're working on, man. And I'm just grateful that we're having this conversation. I'm grateful I know you now, and I'm just grateful in general for you as a human being. So, Matt, just want to take another moment and say thank you for being on the show and dropping so many amazing just knowledge bombs that I personally can't wait to implement, and I hope everybody listening got a lot of value out of too.
Raj, it was a pleasure, man. Been on a lot of shows, enjoyed your energy, great questions, and look forward to connecting more, man.
Absolutely. So everybody, that's a wrap for another episode of the Stay Grounded podcast. I'm your host, Raj. This is Matty A. And until next time, stay grounded. We'll chat with you guys soon. Thanks for joining us today on this episode of the Stay Grounded podcast, brought to you by JavaPresse Coffee Company. My name is Raj, and I hope you found this interview helpful as you create your own ways to make daily happiness a priority. If you're interested in learning more about how your morning coffee can turn into a consistent source of joy in your life, visit www.javapresse.com to learn how our products can help you do that, and use the coupon code PODCAST for 10% off your purchase. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Stay grounded.